Good morning, Year 5. On Friday, we were learning how to add decimals or reminding ourselves how to add decimals. So moving on today, what we're going to be doing is subtracting decimals. So if I share my screen with you, our learning objective is to subtract decimal numbers using counting up. So for these particular sums calculations, counting up is the best method, not formal subtraction. Okay, so for the first starter, this is going to help us with the rest of our lesson. So I want you, when I reveal these numbers, to add up to the next whole number. The first four only have one decimal place. So you've just got to figure out how many tenths to add to it to get to the next whole number. The next four are a bit like money. You need to this time work out how much you have to add to get to the next whole number, but they have two decimal places. Depending on how easy you find this task, may suggest what you should do when we're subtracting decimals, which I'll explain later. Okay, so I'll reveal the stars. Once I have, pause the video, take as much time as you need to answer these, and then I'll give you the answers verbally afterwards. Okay, so here are your numbers. Write them in your book or on your piece of paper, and can you round them, add on to the next whole number, please. So make them to the next whole number. Pause the video now to work them out. Right, hopefully you found that okay. These are what we did on Thursday and Friday. So if we have a look at 7.5, to make that to the next whole number, all we have to do is look at our tenths and see what we have to add to our tenths to make it to the next number. So we've got 0.5, so we need to add another 0.5 to make it to 8. So 0.5 should be your answer. If you put 0.50 because you thought of all the decimals as money, that's great. So number 2, which is 2.3, again you look at the tenths and we add 0.7 to get it to 3. For 9.1, looking at our tenths, we add 0.9. For 8.8, we add 0.2. Now, when there's two decimal places, it does get a little trickier, but you can do it in 2 steps if you want to. Some of you will look at this and know from money what you need to add, which is great. But if you find it trickier, look at your hundredths first and then your tenths. So I'm going to think of it as money. So I've got £1.75 here. If I look at my hundredths, which is my 5, what do I add to that to get to my next 10? So I add 5 hundredths. And now I'm on £1.80. Now I'm on £1.80. How many tenths or 10 pences do I have to add until I get to my next pound? It's just 2 10 pences, which is 0.2. So my answer, if I put those together, is 0.25. Another way of thinking of it is looking at the number 75 and thinking of your number bonds to 100. What do you have to add to 75 to make it to the next 100? It's simply 25. But in this case, it would be 0.25 because of our lovely stubborn decimal. So I'll go a little quicker on these ones. 2.39, what do you add to 0.39 to get to the next whole number? It's 0.61. 2.44, what do I add to 0.44 to make it to the next whole number? It's 0.56. And then finally, 8.77 to my next whole number is 0.77. 0.23. Now, if you found this a little trickier, you may want to do the first step when we do our subtracting decimals next. I'll explain more when we get to it. So let's get on. This is our first problem. Now it's in the form of a word problem, but that makes no difference. Remember, we highlight or underline key information. So let me read it to you. I have a sitting room which is 3.2 meters long. I've just bought a sofa which is 1.78 meters. How much room will I have alongside my new sofa? So the key information here is that your sitting room is 3.2 meters. Now, because our sofa is 1.78 meters, I could place a 0 on the end of my 3.2, which won't change its value, to make it 2 decimal places. It's just a little bit easier to compare when they're both got the same number of decimals places. So, if my sofa is 1.78 meters, I want to know how much space I'll have alongside it if my living room is 3.20 meters. So if you have a look at my number line down below, I'm going to add on. Because there's so much exchanging, if I did column subtraction here, actually counting on would be a better method. And like I've always told you, year 5, this will become a mental method. So we start with our smaller number, 1.78, and we're going to do manageable jumps until we get to 3.20. Now, if you found the initial task harder, you may choose to do a few more jumps, which is absolutely fine. You will still get there. Okay, so that's brilliant. So look at 1.78. What do we add to 1.78 to get to the next 10th? So imagine it's money, if you really want to, and we've got £1.78. I just want to know how much I have to add until I get to my next 10 pence. Well, my next 10 pence would be £1.80, or in this case, 1 metre 80. So that's where my jump's going to go, 1 metre 80. But if I like or don't like decimals, I can think of it as money. Just pretend. Now, what have I added to 1.78 to get to 1.80? So what have I added to 78.78 to get to 0.80? 78, 79, 80. So I've just added 2 hundredths. Okay, so we would write it like this. Now all we do is we add on until we get to our next metre. After 1 metre, our next metre is 2 metres. So what do we add to 1.8 to get to 2 metres? Well, again, think of it like from the mental that we've just done. 1.8, 1.9, 2. So we added on 2 tenths. Or, if you thought of it as money, £1.80, what do you add to 80 to get to the next whole? Is 20. So 0.20. Now, we're on 2 metres, but we want to get to 3.2 metres. So we need to jump to our next whole number. So we get our big jump, and our next whole number or our next metre that we want to go to is our 3 metres. What do we add to 2 metres to get to 3 metres? It's just 1 metre. Now, if you noticed, I'm still using my 2 decimal places. It would just make the column addition easier. Now, for the next bit, I'm on 3 metres. What do I have to add to get to 3.2? It's just 0.2 metres or 0.20. All we have to do now is simply add those up. Now, you may have noticed that a little earlier, 0.22 appeared. That is because if you found the previous task a little easier, the mental task easier, you could go straight from 1.78 meters straight to 2 meters. So you could miss out that middle jump. And that's how you add 0.22. So using column addition as it's the easiest method, if you feel that it's a little trickier, is great. So just write it out using good place value, lining up your stubborn decimals, and you should have come to the answer that alongside her new sofa, Mrs. Evans has 1.42 meters. Now I know that's a lot of work, but if you do it slowly at your own pace, it's fine. Some of you will say to me, Mrs. Evans, I do this in my head. Brilliant. I bet you it's using this method, because no one's going to do the inordinate amount of carrying or exchanging you'd need to do by doing formal subtraction in your head. So let's do another one. This time I'm going to do the larger jump. I'm not going to do those little small jumps, but if you would like to, you can. So if you want to work alongside me, pause the video at any time, and could you draw me a number line? Or a line. This time what we're going to do is we're going to do 8.32 subtract or take away 5.67. So like before, we start at our smaller number, which is 5.67, and we keep doing manageable jumps until we get to 8.32. They have the same number of decimal places, so life's a little bit easier. So this time around, we're going to do a slightly larger jump. So we're going to look at 5.67 and think, what are we going to add to 0.67 to get to our next whole number? Don't stress about that decimal. If that's too hard, just think of it like this. What do you add to 67 to get to the next 100? 67, 68, 69, 70. Now I'm holding up 3 fingers to show that I've added 3. Now that I'm on 70, what do I add to get to 100? Okay, let's add some 10s. 70, 80, 90, 100. Again, I've got another 3 fingers up. So I've added 3 10s and 3 hundreds. So my answer is 33, or because the decimal's stubborn and you're not allowed to move it, 0.33. Now we're on 6. Life's so much easier, because all we've got to do now is jump from 6 all the way up to the unit we want, or the one that we want, which is 8. So we're going to do a nice big jump, and we're going to get our way to 8, which is what we want from 8.32. What do you add to 6 to get to 8? Hopefully you've worked out that it's 2 whole, okay? And then the final jump that we need is to get from 8 to 8.32. Now, it's not as hard as you think. Just like before, we're at 8. What's the decimal we need to add to get to 8.32? Well, quite simply, it's 0.32. Now, those numbers at the top, which has been our working out, we simply add. And we may do it in column addition, or if you're extremely confident, you can add it as you do, any method that you like in your head. But please don't make silly mistakes at this point, as it would be quite upsetting for you, okay? So 0.33, add 2, add 0.32. Line those stubborn decimals up, and you'll find that the answer is 2.65. And I've put meters on the end, but it didn't actually tell us the unit, so 2.65 would have been perfect. Now, final one. So I want you to have a go at this one, and then what I will do is I will show you the steps at the end. So pause the video now and have a go. If you're still a little unsure, I'm more than happy to work through this with you, so just remain or leave the video playing. So, fingers crossed, pause the video now and have a go at this one on your own. Right, you should have had a go. So let's see. So we always start when we're doing counting up with our smallest number. So we've started with 3.82 from the top. Then we put our larger number at the other side, which is 5.45. Now we're going to do some manageable jumps. Now remember, the size of your jumps are up to you and your confidence. But I'm just going to use my number bonds to 100 to help me. So my first jump to my next whole number is going to be to 4. So what do I add to 82 to get to my next 100? Well, I'd need 8 units and then I'd be at 90. So I'd need 110, so that would be 18. But you know the decimal is stubborn, so we can't forget it. It's not 18, it's 0.18 because we have 1/10 and 8 hundredths. Now we need to jump to our next whole number, the whole number that we're getting to, which is 5. So what do you add to 4 to get to 5? That's right, year 5, just 1. And our final jump is from 5 to 5.45. Just look at the tenths and the hundredths and see what you've added. It's simply 0.45. Now comes the easy part of just adding them together. So, using good place value and lining up your stubborn decimal, hopefully you came up with the answer 1.63. Again, I've added meters, but there was no unit of measurement, so 1.63 would have been brilliant. Hope you got it. I'm really proud, so well done year 5. Now we have a couple of tasks. For the core task, the sheet looks like this. They do examples of the jumps for you, so you can use them to model what you're going to do. They also show you the slightly easier jumps and the one that's a little harder, so you can choose which method you want. And you're going to obviously start on number 1. It says draw number lines to help you answer these subtractions. They don't have to be huge. The number lines can be as big as you need. Okay, so for the first 9, I want you to draw the number lines, please, and show me that you know the method. Okay, start with the smallest number and then do comfortable jumps. There are a couple of word problems or 4 word problems afterwards, which are no different. Just underline the key information and do the same methods. Once you've done that, if you feel confident or more confident, you just have answer these subtractions. Use the number lines to help you if you want, but if you don't have to for every single one. I would, however, like some evidence of your working out, so I would like you to use the number lines for at least half, please, year 5. And don't say that's too much work, it's only a couple of lines. We can do this. So after you've done the first 10, you've got your word problems and a little think at the bottom. So all the answers are on the slides that follow, and in order to see the activities, just look at the second to do. Okay? Well done, year 5. Hopefully you understood all that, but we will be doing subtracting decimals again tomorrow.